How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here to do my review of Goldfinger. I'm finally doing this review. I meant to do it a few days ago, but instead I went to go see Top Gun Maverick, so I reviewed the two Top Gun movies. Feel free to check out those reviews. They're up on my channel now. And now I am finally continuing my James Bond movie countdown with Goldfinger. If you're new here, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm at 95 subscribers. I'm trying to get to 100, so I need 5 more to reach that goal. So if you subscribe, it really helped me out and helped me build a nice community of people on my channel. Now with that out of the way, let's get into this review. So Goldfinger came out in 1964 and is directed by Guy Hamilton, and once again has Sean Connery as James Bond. This is his third Bond film, and in my opinion it is his best. This movie is great, and one thing I love about this movie is compared to some of the other Bond films, it doesn't have as much action, but it was never boring for me. I always was invested in where this movie was going and what was happening. The plot around the villain is kind of simple compared to a lot of the other villains. He's just, part of his stories he's trying to take over Fort Knox, but it really works for this movie. And to this day, Goldfinger is probably one of the best, you could probably argue the best James Bond movie villain. The actor who played him, I thought, did a really good job. There's some great scenes with the villain. Like one scene that's very iconic now is when he has Bond up on the tied down to that table, and he has that laser going up between his legs, and so cut him in half and kill him. And I just love the moment when Bond says, "Do you expect me to talk?" and Goldfinger responds, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." That was a great scene. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in this whole franchise. This movie also has one of the best henchmen in the franchise with Oddjob. He doesn't talk, and he's kind of short compared to Bond, but he's got a good physical presence. Like, he'll really beat up James Bond. And also he does this cool thing with his, I think it's a bowler hat, where they do this one demonstration with it where he throws it and he takes off the head of a statue, and with his bowler hat he also ends up killing a character in this movie who, when first time watching it, you sort of expect that character to be the Bond woman of this movie, but she's only in it for like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of this movie. So that was a bit of a twist that I didn't see coming that I kind of liked. But yeah, he's a great henchman. Like I said, one of the best in this franchise. Very iconic. The song for this movie, Goldfinger, was sung by Shirley Bassey, and it is a great song. And like many things in this movie, it is one of the best in the franchise. It is very iconic. It has a great sort of opening credits scene that goes along with the song. I thought it was really good. And this movie also introduces us to the classic Bond car, the Aston Martin. And we get a nice scene between Bond and Q when they're in Q Branch, where he's showing him the gadgets and what the car can do. It is a fun scene, and it becomes like a scene that's sort of repeated in most Bond movies afterwards that we always expect. Just a nice scene between Bond and Q, where Q's trying to show him how to use these gadgets and Bond's giving him a hard time. It's classic. And a lot of people say that Goldfinger is the movie where they perfected the Bond formula, and I would agree with that. With things like, I just mentioned the Q Branch scene, they now have the Bond song for that movie at the start with the actual lyrical part to the song, whereas in Dr. No, it was just a classic Bond theme, and in From Russia with Love they had the musical version of the From Russia with Love song. Didn't have the lyrical version until the end of the movie, and that's when they got the lyrical one at the start. And then again, you got the Bond woman, you got the exotic locations, a great villain. And while this movie doesn't have as much action as some of them, the action that is there is still very good and very fun. There's a nice car chase at the sort of compound that Goldfinger's at, sort of in the first half of the movie. And the final act, when they're in Fort Knox, I thought was a great sequence when the army's coming in. Bond has to battle Oddjob in the huge safe area with all the gold, and then there's the bomb with the clock ticking down. I thought it was very classic and a lot of fun. I do have a few small problems with this movie. They don't take away too much for me, but I do want to address them. First, the Bond woman's name. I'm not gonna say it just so I don't risk getting in trouble with YouTube. Just because I'm new here, I'm gonna play it safe. But if you've seen this movie, you know what it is. And there's another scene with the Bond woman that nowadays is very kind of cringy to watch. I'm sure they weren't thinking about it like that when they were making this movie, but there's a scene towards the second half of the movie with Bond and the Bond woman, and they're in a barn, and it's sort of the scene where they, you know, fall for each other, or she falls for him, and he kind of forces himself on her at the start until it's sort of okay by her, but it's kind of cringy to watch. And then the other part for me is there's a scene where Goldfinger is explaining this plan to a bunch of people from around America who invested $1 million towards him to do his thing, and he's explaining what he's going to do. And then afterwards, he has them locked up in the room and puts this gas in the room that kills them. And watching that, it felt like they just did that scene so the audience knew what was going on, because it felt pointless for these characters. Because, you know, he needed the money from these people who needed the investments. And it comes across like he's explaining what's going to go on, what their investment's for, but he just ends up killing them anyway. So it's like him actually going through this whole presentation that was quite elaborate felt like it was kind of pointless if he was just going to kill them anyway. So yeah, that felt like it was really just for the benefit of the audience. But my issues with this movie are just moments, they're not plots or anything, so it doesn't take away too much for me. Overall, I love this movie, just those few problems, but other than that, it is great. I was always entertained by this, even with not as much action as some of the other films. I was always entertained when the action was there. I thought it was great. I thought the plot was very good for this movie. All the actors were great. Sean Connery was great again as Bond. Like I said, I think this is his best movie as James Bond. And for me, is easily a top 5 Bond film. It is great. It is very iconic, perhaps the most iconic Bond film. I am going to give this movie a 94%. I love this movie. It is great. It's one that when I was younger, didn't quite appreciate as much, but now I just think it's great. So, guys, if you have seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it, and stay tuned for some of my upcoming videos. I'm hoping to watch The Man from Toronto soon, and I'll do a review for that, and I'll continue my James Bond movie countdown with Thunderball, so stay tuned for those. And until my next review, take care, everybody.